to Nature of Reality Radio. I heard about you from some investing video that I had subscribed to, but you are, as you enlightened me about, an old soul who has a lot of spiritual stuff to offer, and you've been writing books about this for quite a while, and you introduced me to your spirituality site as well, in addition to the site that I heard about you from the interview that I first saw you on. I'm trying to get a lot of people on my show to talk about investing in the markets and such, because it seems fitting in this year of the metal ox in the Chinese zodiac speaking wise for us to be a little bullish, if you get my drift, and do things with the market to time things properly and hopefully reverse everything so that the market doesn't screw us over in the ways it has in the past. And I'm going to give you the chance to talk about spiritual stuff, possibly intermingling with some financial stuff as well. You say it may not mix. Well, maybe we'll see how it goes. But just a couple disclaimers for my listeners. Folks, great to be uploading again. I had been not uploading to YouTube for a little while. I was trying to time that with when they're going to approve me again to monetize for ads on YouTube. That isn't supposed to happen until September 11th, that infamous date, when I'm going to be able to approve that. I figured, okay, I'm not going to wait that long to upload videos, so just start uploading them now. And folks, my show is going to be pay-per-view. Not all of it. The last 35 to 40% of the interviews that I do will be, you'll have to pay me on Patreon to be able to listen to it, and I will specify that point during all the interviews when, say from this point onward, you will have to pay me on Patreon to listen to it. There's nothing wrong with people monetizing their great work in this time, in this great time of great challenge. So Don Durrett, you got the floor to introduce yourself and tell about your life story from a primary source perspective. I don't have Alex Jones-itis. I do not interrupt my guests, so I will put myself on mute and give you the floor. Knock yourself out, and I've got a little paper and pen handy to jot down any questions that I may come up with, but I do have your sites up to use as a guide as well. But now is your chance to start us off with a bang.
Okay, wow. You know, I'm long-winded. You give me the floor, I might talk for 20 minutes, but I'll go ahead and take off here. So I basically awoke in 1989. I was always searching for the truth. And 1989, I heard somebody on the radio, Dolores Cannon, talking about how she connected with basically across time, if you will, and it just kind of juggled something inside of me and put me on a spiritual journey. Which thing was absolutely mind-boggling to me was how quickly I absorbed this information, and I didn't I didn't realize this side of me at all. I had an astrologer do a reading on me, and she said that my ability to understand spiritual knowledge is basically almost as high as you could go. And so then I found out that I was a 5th level old soul. And so it basically only goes up to 7. So it's like this continuum of awareness. And as we incarnate and live many, many lives, we basically go up this continuum of awareness. And so I'm way up high on the continuum. And so within a year after I woke in 1989, I started writing books. Within 2 years, I had learned so much. I basically, the stuff that I was reading, I just understood. And so after 2 years, I wasn't really learning much new stuff. There's no really point to really read new stuff because I grasped it. And so I wanted to call. And so when you contacted me, so I basically started doing gold and silver investing in 2004. And then in 2012, I started my website. So I basically just been hanging out, waiting for the world to get to this point that it was ready to accept the truth. And so I'm hiding. I'm just hanging out, doing my investing stuff, waiting. And nobody's in the mainstream media, nobody's basically talked about the truth, what I call the fundamental truths, which is how you should title this podcast, and I'm going to explain some of these fundamental truths to people. Some people have read some metaphysical. Your podcast is The Nature of Reality. Some people probably have exposed themselves to some of these truths, but none of it's been released yet. But right now, there's only about 3% of the global population really understands what I'm going to say fluently, completely. They grasp it. These are the people that basically understand that they're a soul in a human body, and that all the human body is a vehicle. About 3% grasp that. Another 2% believe it or close to it. So it's about 5% of the planet, and that's going to grow to about 50% by the middle of this decade. So we're getting ready for an exponential growth in awareness, and it's just a matter of time before these truths begin to be exposed. And it's really interesting. This is my first interview, my first podcast of explaining this stuff to people. I've written lots of books, over 10, but now I'm going to actually explain it. So I talked about this continuum. So the meaning of life is to become a conscious instrument of the divine consciousness. Now, that's the meaning of life, but it's not what everybody's here to do. It's only for the people that have gotten to that point. And it's okay if you're not ready to attempt to be a conscious instrument of the divine consciousness. It's okay. If you're not ready, you're not ready. You're still going to learn. So everybody here on this planet right now is basically making strides. At some point, they're learning, they're making strides towards that eventuality, to basically become so aware that they're one with the Creator that they literally live that way. So so people today will have to come to the recognition, and it'll happen, that basically we are souls, eternal souls, if you will, inside a human body, and that we're here learning, and that some people are more aware than others. And so it basically gives you compassion for those who are not as aware as you, and then it gives you more kind of respect for those who are a little bit ahead of you. And so there is a hierarchy of awareness, but we're all equal. We're all eventually going to get to that same point. But the big truths that haven't been released to humanity is this fact that we're not humans. We're basically eternal souls that are basically here in these bodies to learn lessons, and that we're all basically connected, because consciousness, all life is embedded with consciousness, and all consciousness is connected to the Creator. And since all consciousness is created to the Creator, we are all connected to each other. And so once this truth is released, it basically removes evil from the planet, because once you know that you're connected to another and you understand it and you grasp it, again, only about 5% really kind of understands to the day. But once it starts going up, once it gets to, like, I don't know the number, but say once we get to 10, 15% of the population, once they grasp it, basically war will come to an end, because you won't be able to find enough people that want to kill other human beings. And so all the diversity on the planet basically starts going away. The diversity being all the evil starts leaving the planet, because more and more people become aware that they're inherently a soul, and they're inherently, the core of a soul is love. And so even though people cannot live that love, cannot live that awareness, just the awareness, just the knowing that it's real, starts to change society, if you will. And so we're starting down that path, and I'm going to talk about it, how we're getting closer and closer to this expansion, where more and more people start to recognize that consciousness is connected to basically other consciousness, and consciousness is connected to the Creator, and that we all are one and life is one. And the interesting thing is that, like the Native Americans, or the natives in various countries, they basically respect the elders. They respect those that are more spiritually evolved, those that are connected to spirit, those are the ones that get the most respect, if you will. That's what humanity is going to start shifting into, where the people that are like me, the older souls, the people that are aware, those are the ones who will start to have a bigger voice. And so right now we basically respect our political leaders, if you will, and our political leaders, they don't even have to be qualified to be a political leader, right? So we're going to start to recognize who is qualified to kind of give the direction to humanity. And so that won't happen this decade, but it'll happen maybe in the next decade or the decade after that, decade after that. But that's where we're evolving to. And so society is going to start awakening, if you will, this journey from 5% of awareness of these truths, these fundamental truths, to 50% of these fundamental truths. So the key here is understanding that we're a soul in a human body, we're here to learn, and we're connected to everybody else. These are the fundamental truths. And that there's no separation between us, there's no separation between us and the Creator, and that all consciousness is connected to each other. So once you get this, that really starts to shift everything. And that's what we're really getting close to. So I've just basically been hanging out, waiting until this truth, everything that I've just said, it starts to be released to humanity. And I believe it's going to be released this decade, possibly by the middle of this decade. And once it starts to be released, it'll start to shift everything. And that's the reason why today you're seeing this implosion where people can't even talk to each other, when in fact we're all eternal souls. It's the Creator. This is the plan of the Creator. The plan of our Creator is to create such dissension that people become ready to be open to these truths. So that's my opening, and I'll stop there and let you ask questions.
That was a great intro. And regarding how we're supposed to be having a spiritual existence on this world, while at the same time intermingling with the physical aspect of reality, and how can we combine them? Well, I think I might as well take this moment to explain a little thing that I've been going through and help make sense of this. And maybe you can help me make sense of my predicament and anybody else. I'm sure there's no doubt a lot of people who are in predicaments similar to what I'm in, and how we are supposed to deal with it without knowing, when we know that there's going to be other people out there who disagree with our best way of handling it and how it can be done. Here's the thing. I had for a while, financially speaking, been saying, okay, let's imagine that one day all this debt's going to be written off with the push of a button. We're going to realize we can't pay off this debt, so let's just get rid of it, start from scratch, push of a button. So before that happens, if you know what's going to happen, max out your credit cards and buy as much gold and silver as you can. And then when all the debt is written off, you can keep all that gold and silver because all the debt was eliminated. Well, I realized a little while later that that's kind of a silly idea, because you will have generated very bad karma by using the credit cards to get things that really you didn't earn. You just got a credit card to get them. And well, that's going to cause a lot of bad karma for you, even though you get to keep the gold and silver. So I had since then said, wait until your credit card debt is down to zero before you use your credit card to buy gold and silver. Although I will admit I have been guilty of that in the last few months. Ever in this year of the metal ox, I've been kind of bullish with a lot of things. I've been hoarding things that are spiritual, getting a lot of crystals, gold, silver, things that I know that I'm going to be using in the future, and I make sure that I don't buy them past their expiration date. So I'm being a sophisticated hoarder in that regard. I know hoarding is an addiction and an obsession, but if you hoard, make sure you don't hoard past expiration date, and there's nothing wrong with it if you know you're going to use it, I say. But I've just been hit by what may be hit by a ton of bricks by this trust that I was supposed to receive in the form of a check for some farm property up in New England from my father's side of the family. The deal went through in regards to everything being approved, but now it's not so sure that it's going to be approved, because the people don't really want to pay as much money as they think they're going to have to pay. The amount that they're being asked to pay to install the things they want to install on the property is more than they wanted to, and now they're trying to work some things around. So I'm right now in a state of limbo, thinking, oh my God, I've been working all this time to enhance my spiritual well-being, putting myself into debt, doing things to improve myself and for the benefit of others, going to things like conferences and meetings and all that. And I feel it was for my betterment. And I'm saying, debt be damned. Getting a spiritual awakening takes priority over paying off credit card debt. And I was saying that while under the assumption, and that's Adam, you and me and myself, that I was going to be able to pay it all off in a heartbeat when this farm property check comes through. But now I'm not so sure that that's going to happen. My horoscopes in regards to the future are kind of iffy in regards to whether that will happen, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. But someone like I, who's in this kind of predicament, and there's a lot of other people who are in this predicament who are like maybe in a lot of debt, but they're basically saying, screw debt. I could care less about paying off debt. The important thing is to have a spiritual awakening, and that takes priority over paying off debt. How are we supposed to do that while at the same time trying to resolve the karma that can be resolved by paying off debt? I babbled long enough. Now's your chance to try to find some remedy.
Okay. So first of all, there's kind of two paths that we can go by in this life. We can either go down the spiritual path or we can go down the human path. And some people choose to do a combination of both, or some people do all of one, all the other. But it doesn't matter which path you go down, you're still going to learn. And so that's where compassion comes in. And that's where, as society becomes more aware, that's the reason why evil kind of goes away, because of compassion kind of kicks into gear. So the spiritual path is kind of the path I'm trying to go down, is where you live through the soul. And so when you live through the soul, you try to make every choice that's in alignment with the greatest good. And you literally try to live from your heart. You try to live your mind quiet, you're present. It's basically a 100% spiritual path. And then you have the other main way, not main way, but not the middle road, but the other extreme, if you will, is the human path, where you live through the ego. And these are the people that kind of deny their spirit. They're basically stuck in this world. They're stuck in this bubble, and they're basically, most of them are trying to be, how do they be happy, if you will? How do I live to be happy? Focus their way. So it's kind of a me thing, focus on me, whereas a spiritual path is more of the focus on the we. And so those are the two kind of extremes. And then the middle way is you're a little of both. And so it doesn't matter which path you go down, you're still going to learn lessons. We're all here to learn lessons, and they have all this diversity, and there isn't a right way, there isn't a wrong way. So you're basically, your question to me was, what's the right way, wrong way to do it? There isn't. You just, whatever choice you make will lead to the next choices. Whatever choices you make in this life will lead to the next life's choices. That's how it works. It's all perfection. It all works out. There's no time involved. It's, the length of time of a human soul, a soul, an eternal soul, is so darn long we can't even fathom it. It's each lifetime on this planet is just one little blip of experience. We take it so seriously. And again, there's like these three different paths. It doesn't matter which one you go down. But the point is that we are currently living in a very, very unique period of time where humanity is going to evolve quickly. This doesn't happen often on planets. It's unbelievably rare. And this planet right now is getting ready to do something that is, I'm kind of repeating myself because it's so unbelievable, is getting ready to shift from a planet that's basically allows everything, if you will, unbelievable amount of diversity, to a planet that shifts away from that into a planet that only basically allows love. With this transition will take generations. But we're at the beginning of it, and within 3 generations, heck, within 2, there'll be very, very little war. Within 1, we will notice the war is going away. Within 2, it'll be very, very little. Within 3, war will be rare. And if war is rare, kind of evil goes away. That's my point. So we're at the very beginning of all this, and so this is where the rubber hits the road. It depends where you're at on the continuum. If you're kind of past halfway, you get to decide if you want to help in this transition, or if you want to ignore the transition. And for you to have this show right now, you have the opportunity, and it's not easy. You have the opportunity to basically say, okay, I'm going to help this planet evolve. And so everything you just told me, it's all about what are the best, and again, it comes back to the spiritual path. What are the best choices? What if I make a choice, is it for the highest good? So you have to start thinking in those terms, and you have to kind of start evolving. I don't know if evolving is the right word, but you have to start moving away from your ego. Stop thinking in terms of your ego and start thinking in terms of the highest good of the planet, which comes from the heart. You have to start going down a spiritual path if you're going to decide if you're going to help humanity or not. That's your answer.
Yes, and this is leading into what I want to talk about regarding how the world handles the idea of being a slave, and whether you want to be a slave or don't want to be a slave, and what's the best way to go about it. I heard Mark Passio, the former Church of Satan member turned whistleblower, in a presentation he gave, he flat out made it clear, you do not have the right to want to be a slave, because you are harming those who do not want to be slaves when you allow yourself to become enslaved. And he went into the explanation of how that's the case. And I guess you can sort of tie this into the debt slave thing, because we've just gotten past the Nixon shock anniversary of August 1971, when the dollar's convertibility to gold was totally severed, and nothing good has come out of that. Mike Maloney gave a fascinating presentation several months ago, How the World's Changed since 1971, showing all the mathematical proof that shows that nothing good has come out of that, for the sake of all it does is make the rich richer, the poor poorer, and make the middle class move closer to the lower class, and make debt and inflation unavoidable. And people actually would want to be a slave. If they want to be a slave, we should have the right to force them, yes, I say force them, to wake up out of their slumber. Although it would be an extreme to do what the guy in the movie They Live did to his friend who refused to put on the glasses. That would be a little extreme. You don't have the right to harm them, but I guess, is it fair to say we do have the right to rub the truth in their face in order to force them to accept the fact that they've been living a lie and they have no choice but to believe it?
So again, I'm a very advanced soul. So I'm, like I said, I'm way up the continuum. I'm fifth level old soul. I'm going to answer your question, but I want people to know that I'm not making this stuff up, or these are not my opinions. That's why I call this show The Fundamental Truths. There's souls on this planet. I mean, it's like some people say, oh, it's impossible. You don't know that. You don't know that you're a soul in a human body. I'm saying that there are people on this planet that know. They know they're a soul in a human body. There are people that grasp knowledge, grasp wisdom. The stuff that I've been saying on this, everything I've said so far is not my opinion. That's my point. It's like, and most people that are not, because this planet is so dense, they think it's impossible for people to basically have knowledge of these fundamental truths. I just wanted to make that point clear, that these aren't my opinions per se. This is really the real deal. Okay. So now what you were saying was basically, it kind of you made it sound as if we need to focus on right and wrong, good and bad. That is not the case. That is what society does today. Society today, and most of our religions, think in terms of right and wrong, good and bad. That's not how we should think as individuals. We should only think in terms of ourselves, not in what we think other people should do, how other people should be right or wrong. We should only think of ourselves, our own example of doing the right thing. What is the highest good I can do myself? So everything has to be internalized for yourself. All you can do is be an example. All you can do is be. Once you step out of that mentality and start thinking in terms of these people are living wrong, anytime you point a finger at someone else, you're doing that from ego. You're validating your own identity. That's not where you want to, that's not how society is going to evolve. Now, our society is very immature, but we're currently evolving forward. We're currently evolving to where I'm basically all these fundamental truths that I'm explaining today, that's where we're going to. But right now, the only thing we can do as individuals is be ourselves, work on ourselves, be an example. We can't go around, we can't save people. We can't go around telling people, oh, this is the truth, do this, do that. And I'm doing this podcast, but all I'm doing, I'm sharing information. I'm not telling you. Like, again, I talked about there are 3 different paths to go down. Everybody, it doesn't matter which path you go. All paths lead to the same outcome. It's okay for people to do whatever they want. We don't have to point a finger at somebody and say, that's right, that's wrong. That's not it. The creator, if you will, allows everybody on this planet free will to do whatever they want. The creator is basically going to love everything they do. I know that's tough for everybody to believe, but every single soul on this planet is going to get something beneficial out of this lifetime. People go, oh man, if you look at the most evilest person on the planet, they go, there's no way that person got something beneficial. I'm telling you, they did. Everybody's going to get something beneficial out of this life. And every single person that incarnated on this life knew going in all of the potentials that could happen in that lifetime. So this is the one thing that we, and it's tough, that's the reason why people like me, when I'm spreading these truths, this is the reason why this information hasn't gotten out to the mainstream. It's really, really difficult for people to switch. This is where it gets really interesting. The reason why people cannot change their beliefs is because their beliefs create their identity, and their identity, and this is it's kind of mind-blowing, if you will, but their identity literally creates their mindset of how they think across the board. I mean, life is kind of complex and difficult on this planet. People don't, if you just change one belief, it can really throw a kilter onto your whole worldview, your whole, how you live your life, all your beliefs basically all kind of connect together. So if you change one, it's kind of a rippling effect. And so it's really, really hard for people to change. And so they have this identity a lot of times goes back to their childhood. And so it takes, in kind of the, the metaphysical field, we talk about, kind of working on ourselves to change our beliefs. And so, and people, we do it consciously. And so if somebody's going to try to change their belief, it's not easy. And so everything I'm talking about today is very complex, if you will. But my point is that when you talked about, harming others, like this one person was talking about, oh, these people are harming others. They're not, because everything is basically perfection. We just have to be ourselves. It's all about us. It's not about me, it's about we, but the way that you affect we is by affecting me, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and now I'd like to get into another sensitive subject that I've touched on every so often on this show, and well, the subject of shifting blame and also the extent by which one can interfere with the free will without violating natural law. Let me give you a little backstory here. It's brought to my attention by Ted Marr that the holographic medbed technology that's going to allow for us to heal things a lot faster is supposed to come out by the end of this year, and it was supposed to come out earlier this year, but it didn't because the powers that still have some control, the powers that be, threatened to blow up the District of Columbia if that were the case. And on a related note, in the same conference Ted Marr held back in June of 2016, there was a couple individuals who pointed out that Edward Snowden actually has documents that would show that the 9/11 truth movement was right all along and that he actually wants to expose them to the whole world. But when I asked Hedmar a couple years later, when I ran into him at the Conscious Life Expo, why hasn't this stuff been exposed? He basically gave the same answer that he did regarding why the holographic medbed technology hasn't been exposed, because the powers that be, someone within the powers that be, threatened to murder a lot of innocent people if the technology was exposed. My biggest beef about this is the fact that we have space brothers and higher consciousness entities, I don't know if you want to call them aliens or anything, or angels or what have you, that are watching over us and protecting us and guiding us and leading us on the right path. And the way I see it, we should be able to ask them, excuse me, I just got threatened by someone who said they're going to murder a lot of innocent people if I expose technology that's going to benefit humanity. Could you please hold back and restrain the bad guys so I can expose this stuff and not have to worry about people getting murdered? Well, apparently there seems to be some law of the universe that says that the angels and guides and our space brothers have to sit on the couch and do nothing in such a scenario and let everybody die as a price to pay for the technology getting released in the event that the whistleblower decided to ignore the threat and release the technology. And in my opinion, they're basically doing the same thing Spider-Man did when those that don't know the story, Spider-Man became Spider-Man. Well, he was bitten by the spider, but he became a superhero, decided to be, with great power comes great responsibility, when he let a thief who the police were chasing get away. The police were like, stop that guy, please help us. And he let the thief get away, and the police were like, with your great powers, you could have stopped him. And Spider-Man said, that's your job, I just live on these streets. Well, that was a mistake, because later that night, that thief who let get away murdered his uncle, and he knew that his uncle would still be alive had he helped the police. And likewise, what I'm trying to point out is, if in the scenario I gave, the people die because someone gave the powers that be made good on their threat that they would kill people if technology that helped humanity were exposed, I think we should blame our space brothers for not exercising their great powers to step in and help humanity awaken. So what exactly is the law of the universe that forces them to not intervene and make us suffer in such a situation?
Well, it's free will. So basically, where your question comes from is basically your conditioning that there is right and wrong, there is good and bad. So on this planet, it's basically the creator knows what's going to happen in advance. It's basically a planet of experience. It's a planet of diversity. It's done on purpose. So there isn't, right and wrong, good and bad, good and evil per se. The fact is, it's all perfection and everything. It's all an illusion. Again, we're just using these human vehicles for experience to learn. So when we point a finger and we say, that's bad, that's evil, that's wrong, that's just the human ego basically putting a definition on it. When in actuality, it's just like kind of a game, if you will, a computerized game where people are playing these roles. But in actuality, the soul is learning something from it. So the reason why the outside, the aliens, if you will, the third party, the reason why they can't impact this planet is because it will change the diversity. Because once the truth comes out, then the diversity goes away. So the creator basically says, I don't want to ruin this simulation, if you will, yet. I'm going to wait until these guys are just about ready to blow themselves up, and then I'll stop the simulation. So it's perfection. Everything on this planet is perfection. You don't know that until you leave your body. When people leave their body, again, I have to repeat this, and these are not my opinions, right? I'm telling you guys the truth. When you leave your body, basically all you feel is love, because that's your core. So when you leave your body, you go back to home. It's basically pure love. So and everybody, I don't care how evil, the Taliban, these guys that are just kind of the worst of the worst, when they leave their bodies, they're going to feel love just like we're going to feel love. It's like, what? They basically came into this lifetime to be the Taliban because that was That was the choices that they had to come to this planet. So there's only, so many bodies that are available on this planet, and you only get so many opportunities if you want to come here. So they're like, okay, these are your choices. And a lot of people, the only choices they got were basically be evil, if you will. But that was the role they chose, but they're going to get something positive out of it. Now, back to this free will. The reason why our angels don't basically tell us, only to basically guide us into this perfection, if you will, is because we wouldn't learn our lessons. They basically only tell us so much. We can get guided to a certain extent, but they only tell us so much. They still want to allow us to have our free will so that we can learn our lessons. It's almost like if you go into a classroom and they give you the answers to the test, what's the point of studying? I already have the answers, right? You don't want the answers in advance because you want to learn something. And that's the reason why the aliens have basically been kept away. So there is something called the knowledge barrier. Again, not making this stuff up. The knowledge barrier was in place on this planet, and the knowledge barrier came down this last decade. So now the planet is actually going to, for the first time ever, going to basically be able to study consciousness. Until this last decade, and this is why, if you go back from 2000 backwards, all the studies that were done on consciousness basically didn't go very far. You have quantum mechanics, but they really don't understand it. Einstein called it, crazy at a distance, craziness at a distance, because he didn't understand it. He couldn't really study it. Well, now the knowledge barrier, that was the barrier. Einstein couldn't understand it because the consciousness on the planet would not allow him. Because if he could understand consciousness, he could prove the existence that we're connected. And this is going to happen around 2050. Because right now, starting right now, the only college in the United States that studies consciousness is the University of Arizona. And they're not making much strides, but they're going to start. And in 10 years, all the colleges are going to be studying consciousness. This is the next wave. And so consciousness, once they start studying it, this is going to start shifting things. And so free will, if you will, and then the aliens and the extraterrestrials are basically going to appear. Now the knowledge barrier is down, and once we start advancing a little bit further, they'll appear, and then all of these belief systems, all of our belief systems will start to crumble and will start changing. So you look at the terrorism that's going on. You look at the Taliban, you look at Al Qaeda, and you look and you go, how come these guys don't realize what they're doing is wrong? Now, I'm just using the wrong. All wrong is basically living backwards. The word evil spelled backwards, live spelled backward is evil. So all they're doing is basically living backwards. They're not living from the heart. They're not living from the soul. Why are they doing this? Well, how is it going to change? How are they going to start basically reverse evil and start living and start basically spreading love? How is that going to happen? What's going to happen through conscious awareness, which is coming, which is going to happen. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. Right. And oh, by the way, apparently I wasn't on mute during the time you were talking. If anybody here heard any puffs or anything, I was puffing on my mapacho pipe. I don't want to get any crazy ideas and think people I'm smoking pot or crack or something like that on the show. So just need to get that out of the way. Yeah, mapacho is a great thing to smoke during the shows to really cleanse out the negative entities and be able to speak in a down to earth level that makes people that are really sheeple-like wake up. But anyhow, at this point, I think is the point where I'm going to say from this point in the interview onward, people are going to have to pay me on Patreon to be able to listen to it. And I'm probably going to start uploading my shows to Apple iTunes as well. Find a way to do that because YouTube really isn't working too well. I've been going through a lot of shadow banning and all. And, well, hopefully that will change in the future. But then again, there's so much censorship. It's ridiculous.